Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to Series 4, Episode 2 of the Racing Together webinar. Today we're going to explore motivation and method, a standout year for racecourse engagement. My name is Matt Jones, and I'm the Senior Race Day Experience and Communications Executive at the Racecourse Association. I joined the business in 2018, having completed the BHA development programme, and prior to that I worked race days at Newmarket and Chelmsford City racecourses. Before we get started properly, I just want to remind everybody that today's webinar recording can be viewed online afterwards on the Racing Together website and their YouTube channel, and that podcast links will be emailed out afterwards via Zoom as well. If you'd like details about future episodes, you can sign up to the Racing Together newsletter via the Racing Together website. We'd like today's webinar to be as interactive as possible, so please do submit your questions via the chat function as we go, and we can answer those as we go along. Finally, we're always looking for ways to develop this webinar series, so please do take the time to fill out the survey that will appear at the end of today's session, where you can share your feedback on the session and any ideas you have for future topics. So before I hand over to today's panelists, I'd just like to speak a bit about the Racecourse Association and why we're involved with today's webinar. The RCA is the representative body for 58 racecourses across the UK, and our aim is to provide leadership and representation of racecourses across a multitude of areas, including, as we'll discuss today, racecourse community engagement. Everything we do is guided by our core values of excellence and innovation, and we take pride in sharing best practice amongst our membership. One way in which we do this is via the RCA Showcase Awards, which is our annual gala event celebrating the best of racecourse operations. For these awards, racecourses are invited to submit their best initiatives from the past 12 months into a variety of categories covering all aspects of racecourse operations. And the category we're going to discuss today is the Racing Together Community Award. Racing Together represents all of the sport's varied community engagement and education activity, and is a partnership led by the education charity Racing to School. So the organisation were the perfect partners for the Community Award at the Showcase Awards. Today's webinar brings together some of the entrants and finalists from the 2024 award as we explore the British Racecourse Community Programme highlights of 2024, their aims and outcomes and plans for 2025 and beyond. Remember, please do interact with the webinar and ask questions using the Q&A and chat functions as we go. And now I'd like to hand over to today's panelists to give a quick introduction to themselves and the work that they're here to discuss today. So, Blatheen, if I hand over to you first.
Hiya, I'm Blatheen Murphy, Wincanton Racecourse General Manager. I became General Manager at Wincanton in November 2023, so going into my kind of second year-ish of it now. My whole career has been with the Jockey Club. I started when I finished my Masters in CRM, which is digital marketing, and then I was on the Trainee General Manager programme, and now I'm General Manager at Wincanton. My whole life I've been involved in racing, and being a racecourse general manager is all I ever wanted to do. So I'm delighted to be able to do all the nice things that come with that.
Thanks, Blatheen. Lewis?
Hi, yeah, so my name's Lewis Donnovan. I am the marketing manager here at Sandown Park and also at Kempton Park Racecourse. I've been working for the Jockey Club now for 2.5 years, so know Blatheen very well. We've worked together on many things over the years. And yeah, so that's been my time at the Jockey Club. Before that, I previously worked at British Champion Series and also Goodwood Racecourse. So I've been heavily involved, particularly on the racecourse side of things throughout my career in racing, looking at how racecourses can help further their community activations, been involved in a few projects across those different organisations as well. And today we're going to have a chat about our gifting scheme in particular that we run here at Sandown Park at the Tingle Creek meeting, and how that's helped influence and impact local people to the racecourse.
Thanks, Lewis. And Vari?
Hi, I'm Bari Russell. I'm here as a charity that has worked with Huntingdon Racecourse. So I set up Creating Nature's Corridors 3 years ago with a mission to plant 10,000 trees and hedging plants per year across the UK and Ireland. And to date, we've planted over 31,000 in just 3 years. One of our biggest projects was Huntingdon Racecourse, so I will be sharing that later.
That's great. Thank you, everybody. So if we firstly dive into a bit more details about the initiatives and work that you're here to discuss today, sort of how those came about, why those came about, and the impacts they've had on your teams, your racecourse as a business, and the wider community as well. So Blatheen, if I go back to you first to talk about the Teddy Rocks campaign.
Yeah, so Teddy Rocks is a festival that's been run in the memory of a child that unfortunately got childhood cancer and passed away. His name is Ted Newton. So it's been running for a number of years now, and since it started, it's raised £650,000. It's not extremely local to us. It's in Dorchester, but the company that runs it and his brother also runs Rock and Ribs, which is a festival here, a 3-day festival that brings 6,500 people a day to Wincanton, which if you've ever visited Wincanton, you will know that that is no easy feat. So yeah, how we got involved in it is basically Barefoot came to us to run a festival, and then we in turn gotten more involved in their charity festival. So it's kind of a synergy, but it works well for us. Yeah, but more should I just keep rolling? So what we do to lend a hand is that Jockey Club Catering, if you're familiar with the structure of the Jockey Club, we're in a joint venture, so all our catering comes from them. They donate 1,100 meals on the live days of the festival for all the staff, free of charge. They get a kitchen put in there for them. So the financial contribution from Jockey Club Catering for the festival is around £8,000. And then from the racecourse team directly, we go out when it's still in build stage, and we help set up like the perimeter fence all around, any of the heavy lifting. Obviously, there's loads of strong people at racecourses doing all the hard work. So we all go out there and just do what we can to support. My ops manager, Gary Oakley, works for Barefoot separately, and he actually, at the Teddy Rocks event, he works in silver event, so a very important role. Your listeners may also be familiar with the Badger Beers race at Wincanton, which is the longest sponsorship in racing, going into our 64th year now. They're also massive supporters of Teddy Rocks, so it's really beneficial for us to be able to get involved in a charity setting with some of the largest financial supporters of the racecourse. So it really is kind of a secular, we give to you, you give to us, but it builds so much relationships between us and the community. And Teddy Rocks is obviously the festival over there, which people more local to there really enjoy. And Rock and Ribs, which takes place here, is definitely a day in everybody's diary outside the racing calendar. Because we only race from October to April, there's plenty of time in the summer, and a festival is just fantastic for people to be able to look forward to, and maybe there isn't so many other social events taking place locally. So yeah, that's us.
No, that's great, and I love how it's not just financial contributions, but it's the whole Wincanton team coming together to support something local, and how it can sort of you're doing it. It's a great thing to get involved with, but it's also beneficial for the racecourse, sort of commercially working with those partners, which community work, when done really well, does all those different things.
Exactly.
It builds on social license, but also can have commercial benefits for the racecourse as well. So I think that social license point is really pertinent to what you're doing at Sandown as well, Lewis. If I can bring you in here to talk about the work that you've been doing over the last 2 years, I think it is.
Yeah, very much so. So it's actually a scheme that starts. So our scheme is titled our gifting scheme is what we call it. It actually started, I think it was 4 years ago, was when it very first started. But it actually started as a slightly different variation, where it was a regifting scheme, where we actually ran it on our first race day in January, and the premise was that anybody that had any Christmas presents that they were given over Christmas that they didn't want or they weren't going to use, anyone that was then attending one of our race days, we encourage people to bring them along afterwards. And then we have a local community centre located For anyone that's familiar with Sandown Park, we have 3 famous jump fences here called the railway fences, which are all 3 fences very quick in succession in our back straight. Just the other side of those fences is where Lower Green Community Centre is actually based. So we initially teamed up with them as a re-gifting programme to get people's unwanted gifts down to them, to help them support local families in the area that perhaps aren't as fortunate, aren't able to celebrate Christmas as much as they would like to. So it helps provide particularly the children for the local community with extra gifts at Christmas time. Obviously, the initial premise when it started as a re-gifting scheme meant that those presents were distributed after Christmas in January. So we kind of knocked our heads together, and when I took over this in scheme, inherited when I started, we sort of looked at it and thought, how can we make it bigger? So we actually then moved it to, again, anyone that's familiar with the racing calendar, the Tingle Creek Festival that we host here at Sandown Park in December, which is our biggest race meeting of the year. We sort of have 16,000 people across site, across both days. So it was a really great opportunity to leverage that community piece that we wanted to do and bring it to the biggest audience that we actually have here on a racecourse throughout the year. So by moving it to the Tingle Creek Festival that we did in 2022, I believe it was the first year it was at the Tingle Creek Festival, we actually in that year raised about 200 gifts for the children and families of Lower Green. And then since then, it's really gone from strength to strength. So more and more people have become aware that it takes place. We had customers this year for the first time sort of coming onto site and going, I've got my gift that I bought a gift last year. I bought it again this year. I remembered it was happening. Where can I drop it off? Or I've forgotten to bring my gift, but where can I drop it off to you in the week after racing before they get dropped off at the centre? And that was really encouraging for us to see how much that this type of project has an impact on our racegoers and also the local community. And delighted to say that we actually ended up with over 400 gifts this year for the local community centre. So the fact that it's grown over 100% in that kind of 2-year stint by moving it to the Tingle Creek Festival has been a real positive change, and it makes a real difference. We've had some staff members that have gone down and helped distribute the presents, which they do before Christmas down at the community centre. We've had some great kind of images come back of children enjoying those presents that have been dropped off, and we've had a great selection of gifts as well. There's no kind of end to what we require to be donated for the scheme, whether it be gift cards, toiletries, actual presents and toys. We get such a vast array, whether it be actual items for people to help at Christmas, wrapping paper, gift tags. We've had all of those things donated, and they've all gone a really long way down at the community centre. They've also helped bring the community centre forward as well, because it allows more people to go there, more people to benefit from what they're providing. It sends more sort of foot traffic their way to really help elevate their profile as well locally to us. And as you know, we're blessed as a racecourse to be located in a fairly affluent area of southwest London. However, that's not to say that there aren't areas of our community that don't find it so easy, and those schemes are really, really important to help out those families. So yeah, that's why we set it up and how we've developed it really over the last 2 or 3 years to a place where, you know, every time we load up our cars and we take all the gifts down to Lower Green, and very much this year they sort of looked at us and thought, this is on the cusp of how many gifts we can actually facilitate taking. So the fact that we've managed to grow the scheme to that in such a short period of time, I think is a real success.
Yeah, thanks, Lewis. I think it's brilliant how much it's developed even over just a few years. And really exciting perhaps for what it could do in the future as well. I think you made a really interesting point there about the sort of prominence of it and moving it to a bigger day, because there's so much great community work going on across racing, and we need to be, you know, sort of shouting about that as loudly as we can. I think by moving it to Tingle Creek Day, you managed to get coverage on ITV racing and local radio as well, didn't you? So it's really sort of getting the message out there, not only to the wider racing community, but to the community around your course as well.
Absolutely, our channels are so important for what we do, and the media outlets that we have, because you know we can do that work in the background, but if enough people aren't seeing it, it doesn't have the required impact. So leveraging those channels has been really important for us. And I say we've had great support from ITV, the team at RMG as well have been really, really supportive in helping it grow.
Mm-hmm. And I think when talking about sort of working with the local community as well, that's probably quite a good chance to hand over to you, Vahi, because I know you had a lot of local volunteers that helped with the project you did at Huntingdon Racecourse. So could you tell us a bit more about that project and how the local community got involved as well?
Yeah, so Huntingdon Racecourse was one of the biggest sites that Creating Nature's Corridors has planted with. For many of you that know Huntingdon, it's quite prone to excessive water, shall we say, and flooding. So I've lived in the village opposite the racecourse for 17 years, so knew that it flooded regularly and wanted to make an impact and help reduce that flooding. And as a parent of a rugby playing daughter, I knew how cold it was standing on the side of the rugby pitch and by the racecourse, because there's nothing to protect you. So we planted over 2 miles of hedgerow along the whole of the parking into the racecourse. And as you come into the racecourse, we've replanted the thicket at the top. So there's 10,000 green tubes with canes now, with each one of those got a sapling in it, and they're doing phenomenally well despite having been flooded. But we reached out to the local community, so we had guides, we had scouts, we had brownies, we had corporate clients coming along and helping plant. And there was hundreds of people over 4 separate days, and then we came back in the summer and mulched as well, because we pride ourselves on the success of each sapling, and each one really, really counts. Excuse me. So it was a vital element to get everybody involved. For many people, it was the first time they'd ever planted a tree. For many, it was the first time they'd been to Huntingdon Racecourse. So for us, it was combining lots of different elements of getting people to the racecourse for the first time, getting them to physically make an impact. And as part of that impact, we have got thousands and thousands of pounds worth of press coverage. So we were on Look East, we've got radio interviews, we've had subsequent TV and media coverage on the back of it, because it's such a big project. It was great to get people planting a tree for the first time. We also, so once we'd finished the planting round the car park and the racecourse, we then have created a new wet woodland, which was a challenge to plant. There is a hilarious video of me nearly falling headfirst into the mud, which I'm eternally grateful for someone capturing. But it's a vital part of the racecourse development to make sure that woodland sucks up loads of water, but also creates biodiversity for nature. And we, through doing NCT classes, my husband and I met a lovely family whose son was born 3 days before our daughter. Sadly, he passed away at the age of 16. So we've named that wood Ollie's Wood, which is really special. And the sign was built by a local builder, a local art teacher painted it. So it's felt like a really lovely melting pot for everybody to come together. And they may feel like their part was very small in the jigsaw, but it wasn't, because it's created a legacy that will live on, for dog walkers to enjoy, for everyone to enjoy across the whole site. So it's been a really, really fun project, and we're about to start planting again. So we've got another 4,000 trees to plant at Huntingdon Racecourse.
No, that's brilliant. And I think, yeah, it's created a space that the whole community can enjoy now. And I think it's also an opportunity that a lot of other racecourses could probably explore, because, I mean, Huntingdon isn't the only one that has excessive water at times of year, unfortunately. And I think how the whole community came together as well to do the project is brilliant, and something a lot of racecourses could do. Jonathan, I see you've got you here now as well, so it's good to have you here. Thank you for joining. If you could, sorry,
I should apologise first off for not being here at the beginning. And in actual fact, I kind of lost track of time, and I was busy gossiping in the town square, which is probably what I wanted to talk about, really.
Well, I was going to say it's an example of community engagement, or engaging with the local community, isn't it? So before we get into the work that you've done at Kelso there, could you just give a quick intro and an overview to yourself as well?
So I've managed a number of race courses starting in 1996 at Worcester. We couldn't really plant any trees, sadly, at Worcester, because it's a site of historical interest and a SSSI and all sorts of other things, and floodplain, all things together. But I've certainly planted trees and hedges at Fontwood Park, at Cartmile Racecourse, and here at Kelso, and so I'm full of admiration for the much more hedging and trees at Huntingdon as well. I think that's a fabulous project, and I love that sort of thing. But yes, I've spent, I suppose, about 25 more years just involved predominantly with small independent jumps tracks. At the time that I ran Worcester, it was owned by the City Council. At the time I ran Fontwood Park, it was an independent track prior to its purchase from Northern Racing. So a lot of time, and I think small jumps tracks in particular, I mean, all racecourses are part of the community, of course they are. But if I take Kelso as an example, it's been a centre for the farming community in the Scottish borders for more than 200 years. And there's only about 100,000 people spread across the borders. It's a huge area. The towns are relatively small. I mean, I think Kelso has a population of about 7,500. So race meetings for many years have been a meeting point, and that's quite important. I think when I read about this webinar and the topic, I think what I wanted to say was that I couldn't really take much credit for the work and the projects that we do, because there's so much that comes forward from our local community, from the racegoers that attend, from people that live in the area, and they come to us with things that they want to do. And as an example, we submitted a project for last year's awards, the RCA Showcase Awards. It's centered around pony racing, a pony racing day, which, to be perfectly honest, is the baby of Jane Clark, one of our annual members, a sometime casual worker here at the racecourse, sister of Sandy Thompson, the racehorse trainer. She's really the driver behind that. And there are volunteers, there are people who are involved in our catering team who are mums of kids that take part. There's a huge group of people who engage in that and make it happen. It just happens that we have a venue that can facilitate it, and we do so very willingly. And then at the same event, it just happens a few months in advance of that day, we were gifted a massive collection of photographs from a late local photographer called Eric Bryce. And some of them are actually behind me on the wall here. I'm sitting in one of the hospitality boxes at Kelso Racecourse. Eric took photographs of sport in the Scottish borders over 3 or 4 decades. And so he left this huge collection of negatives and some prints. And we inherited basically all of the horse racing ones. Again, there's Miles McNulty, who's the husband of one of my office team here at Kelso, took on the job of sorting the photographs. He's just really passionate about his horse racing and was keen to discover who all the horses were and the riders and so on. And we sorted them into batches, and we thought, wouldn't it be nice if we could show these to people? So we picked the pony racing day and said, if anyone wants to come along and look at the photographs, maybe take photographs away, even if they, if they identify members of their family and that sort of thing, we can repatriate some of these images. And we did that, and it was just a lovely day, because what happened, in fact, was the photographs attracted perhaps a bias towards the older generation, people who are sort of looking back on, days, past, and people who they knew would be in the photographs. And the pony racing was dealing with the next generation. So we were able to bring these people together, and actually it was just a lovely day. And we're very keen to do something very similar again. But the point is, where I started, is that actually very little of this, I can't claim any credit for any of it personally. There are certainly members of my team that got very involved and assisted, and their partners and their children and so on. But it really is a community effort, not necessarily a racecourse effort. It takes, we're part of the community, but we can't do any of this stuff without the input of all those people around us. And that's, I think that's quite an important point, is you just have to give people time and be approachable, that people can come and ask you for things. And if it's within our power and gift to do something to help, then, we like to get involved.
No, absolutely. I think that's something you can see across all of the work that we're talking about today, and also across the different submissions that we had for the Racing Together Community Award at Showcase. All of them are sort of collaborative projects between a variety of different parties. It's difficult for the racecourses on the call to do things purely by themselves, but there are a lot of people out there that want to try these things and make a difference, and working together, you can really get that across the line. I think, and the other thing that was so good about the day your team hosted, Jonathan, was that sort of cross-generational sort of feel that it had to it as well, particularly getting the next generation involved through that, but also inviting sort of perhaps slightly older people from the community to come and sort of reminisce as well. And I think racecourses are often hubs in their local community for people to get together and maybe remember things from the past, or for other racecourses in more urban areas, they're often racecourses are often sort of custodians of green spaces in what can be quite built up areas, and people use them for those purposes as well. So to bring in one of our other speakers as well on that sort of cross-generational family theme, Lewis, I saw for the Sandown, you invited, not only did you do the gifting scheme, but you also invited people from the community centre to come to the racecourse as well. And you hosted a meal, and that was a sort of equal split between younger people and families as well. So why did the racecourse identify that as something that was important to do?
Well, it was actually an initiative that was led by our catering team, so Jockey Club Catering. They actually took the lead on this. And so last year we hosted, it's always been a bit of an anomaly in Sandown's fixture list. We actually haven't hosted a family-themed race day here for quite some time. We have, for those that know where we're located, there's quite a lot of racecourses in and around this area. There's quite a lot of competition, but we thought it was actually, and we were seeing in our data, it's quite a key demographic families were missing from our race days. So we kind of decided that the important thing would be to introduce a race day that provided a feeder for that and provided an entry mechanic for families in the local area. Obviously, the bit we touched upon before, and those families we're helping out down at Lower Green, kind of an opportunity for people to come here on a family-themed race day and enjoy the day, have some educational pieces. We had another day, we had pony racing here as well for that day, which is obviously always a really popular way of integrating people into race days. And then our catering team led on that piece to kind of help some families, again, supported by several local charities that are perhaps relying on food banks, need that additional support to actually come here on a race day, be hosted in our nicest facility is on site, our Gold Cup suite. We opened that up for the day. We provided that for nearly 200 adults and children on the day to come and join us, taking the race day, taking all the activities that are taking part here, enjoy our food that we put on, which was completely free of charge. It was all there to kind of help integrate people into the race day, and the feedback from that was really, really positive. As I say, it was our first year running that race day, so it was very much an intro for us to kind of see what the appetite is there and how much people are wanting to engage with that. But we saw really positive feedback, and the amount of families that we were then able to help and support on the day was overwhelming. We weren't really sure how many were going to take up the offer, but yeah, we had so many, which was great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I liked with the work you've done as well, how you sort of kept a racing theme throughout as well. And I know you utilised your retraining of race horses for courses ambassador, and took him and took the horse out into the community as well to introduce people that might not have seen racing or race horses up close before to that. And I know Blatheen, Wincanton, you've done that with Frodon, who's a bit of a, for people that might not be as familiar, a bit of a local legend of a horse in that area, and a really popular jumps horse from the last 5 or so years. So how did that come about once Frodon had retired?
It basically came about, we always have a pre-season lunch with Paul Nicholls, and Frodon is obviously one of our favourite things to talk about in the Southwest. He's won the Badger Beers, which makes him a legend here forever and ever and ever. So we had a pre-lunch and we just said, oh, what can we do with Frodon? And at the time, we introduced at the Jockey Club, like the Gallagher Racing Experience days. It was just in its just starting out, and I thought, right, let's give it a kick before that comes about and see what we can do. So we engaged with Racing to Schools, who are just phenomenal, and they got us in touch with a school, the Wincanton's main primary school, which they basically said, yeah, that we could bring the horse in, and Paul Nicholls and all his staff are superstars. They brought him down, literally pulled the horse box into the car park, got him off, and he walked around. Bryony came out the day, she rode him here when he won the Badger. And she spoke to the children, and Racing to Schools obviously did their educational piece as well on that day. And it really was, I just started here because I was here, started in like the September maybe, and this was before the Badger in the November. So it was a really quick turnaround, and at the time, the Clark here, who's Dan Cooper, who's now in Haydock, he was across Wincanton and Exeter, and the GM, Jack Parkinson, was across both as well. So everybody had loads to do. It's when West Country weekend, which is our busiest 2 days here, across Exeter and Wincanton, it fell just before then. So really everybody had to, it was an extra piece for everybody. But it was just so rewarding. Like, it was, I don't think I'll be able to match it. The kids were just thrilled, like absolutely thrilled. I remember when Bryony walked up like the centre, they were all in their school hall, and they were like all high-fiving her, and it was just fantastic. So a really great experience for really young children at their first times. Even though we're very rural, I think I definitely, coming forward, and take for granted that children may actually not have touched a horse before or seen a horse that close before. And definitely it might not be in their radar that there's these young female jockeys that achieve so much just 5 minutes up the road. And having somebody like Paul Nicholls that is just so willing to go out into the community and go above and beyond to provide people with those experiences. So yeah, fantastic effort from everybody. And if you haven't done it at your racecourse, I'd recommend doing it.
No, absolutely. I think you hear that a lot as well. Like these projects and work like this, it can be a lot of work for the teams to put on, but it's also some of the most rewarding work that they do as well. Seeing the reactions from the people that are benefiting from it. Is that something you saw, or you're starting to see with the work at Huntingdon? Because I see in the submission, you said sort of slowly you feel like you're starting to make a real difference to the local community and further afield. And I think, as you said before, you were sort of getting the scouts and various different young people groups involved as well. So is that something you felt as the project was going on?
Definitely, and I think I've made new friends that I would never have made in the village. So there's a really lovely gentleman called Bernard who's come and helped at every single planting we've done at Huntingdon, and he used to work at RHS Wisley, and I've seen him walking around the village. But I think post-COVID there's that lack of, it's improving, but there's a lack of community spirit, and I think opportunities like this can really gel people back together. So now when I'm walking the dog, I see 5 or 6 people that have all helped on tree plantings, and you get to learn their knowledge, and you get to meet and enjoy new people's company and their experiences. And I definitely think it's slowing down the floodwater. So as you approach into Huntingdon Racecourse, you come down the hill, and then there's a field on the left hand side, and you could see how all the debris had been slowed down by the fact that we planted so many thousands of trees along that stretch. And I think that's where we're starting to see the impact. And when you've delivered a really big project with such a high success rate and so many volunteers, I think we had about 200 volunteers over that one project alone, and so many people had never planted a tree before, you've got so much data to report back on, and then it's self-perpetuating. So when we put the plea out for more help, A, the TV and the radio channels all want to hear from you because it's a really good success story, and B, then more people are likely to get involved. So I think it's definitely galvanizing opportunities. And what was great was the team at Huntingdon then gave all the volunteers a ticket to come to the races with their families. And I think we are, a mile and a half, the villages from the racecourse, but I would say a large percentage of the people have never been to the races. So it's probably 60 or 70 people have never actually gone the other side of the old A14 and gone to the races. So it's another way, with my day job, which is running a marketing agency, it's another way of engaging with that community to pull them in. And I can vouch for Racing for Schools because 2 of my 3 kids have all had that experience at the primary school, and loved it. So I think there's so many ways that you can reach out and connect with your community through tree planting, through community, school projects. But for a large percentage of the population, racing is a dark art and they don't understand it, and it's seen as slightly elitist. But actually, there's so many ways to get involved, and that's what's great about all these community projects.
Yeah, absolutely. I think being a bit sort of creative with how you try and engage with the local community, if they're not sort of straight there through the door to come purely for the racing, there are so many different ways you can sort of manufacture that almost whilst doing great work as well. I really like the point you made around the community spirit as well. I think that's something that, particularly in maybe more in sort of urban areas, that is something that's been lost slightly from COVID. Jonathan, if I come to you, I know I'm lucky enough to have been to Kelso myself and seen the community spirit there. So perhaps that's not something you've ever struggled to create at Kelso. But I wanted to touch upon the point of sort of about wider social license with you. I think some of the stuff Vahi was saying there is perhaps, some members of that community hadn't engaged with the racecourse, but now they've done all this work for flooding. It will obviously benefit the wider area as well. And as somebody that you sit on the Racecourse Association board representing the SI racecourses, and you're a bit more involved with some of that wider industry work, you'll be aware of how much social license comes up as a topic within racing and why that's so important. So I really wanted to ask you about sort of the importance of community work and talking about it not only to the industry, but also further afield as well to the community and to even sort of politically as well, why that's so important.
Well, it's vital. And, I'm old enough to, know that when I started riding ponies at an early age, we used to hack around all of the local roads. There wasn't anywhere we couldn't go, and it wasn't unusual to see horses and ponies in your local towns. We used to take ponies to the shops and tie them up outside and buy sweets and all of that sort of thing. I live in an area now in the Scottish borders where there is a very rich equestrian heritage, and almost every local town has a common riding where people will get on horseback and go and ride the bounds of the towns, and frequently these events don't just last a day. There's usually a week of celebrations, and in some cases there's several weeks build up with ride outs and all sorts of things. So I'm lucky enough to see horses out and about quite regularly, but even here in the Scottish borders, I see less happy hackers out on the road. Seeing horses out and about is definitely reducing every year, and And so I think the general public is losing touch with the horse. And that has an impact on the social license that you're talking about. If people aren't used to seeing horses, holding horses, even sitting on horses, then they don't really understand what we do as a sport when we deal with horses every day. And that means that the contact we can give them through engagement through the racecourses becomes even more important, because they know that this is a venue where horses come to on a regular basis. They might come and see those horses. They might come to other events that are staged here, and they, they're not seeing the horses, but they're still familiar with it because they see photographs like the ones that I've got on the wall behind me and things like that. So there's that level of engagement that helps people to think, right, okay, we get that this sport has a place in the community. We understand what it's for, and so on. But I think we have to work harder on that the more urbanized society becomes, and as I say, an awful lot has changed, certainly in the time that I've been involved in the sport, but predating that. So I think the community engagement is vital.
Absolutely. I think that's something we would all echo on here. And as we've already mentioned, there's a number of ways that people listening to this, if they do work for a racecourse, can get involved, whether it be through a Horses for Courses ambassador, through retraining of racehorses, or through racing to school days, or even the Racing Together Community Day, the sort of national day of volunteering, where racecourses can really get involved with their local community by volunteering their time as well. So we've got just a few minutes left, so I just wanted to touch upon some future plans that people have as well. Lewis, I know it's quite a big year for Sandown this year, so is there anything special planned in terms of community engagement to celebrate that?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a funny feeling you might come to me first on that one, Matt. Yeah, it's our 150th birthday actually at Sandown Park this year. So we were founded in 1875. So it's a really big opportunity for us to really grow the racecourses profile locally, engage the local community. And we're working on some really big plans at the moment that I sort of got to navigate my way through. I can share certain bits, I can't share other bits, but we're looking to do quite a substantial charity walk here this year at Sandown Park. 150 years, 150 laps of our course. If you multiply that out, that comes to 400 kilometers, 5 consistent days of walking. So it's a really, really big project that we're currently having the working at the moment. And on the side of that, we're kind of looking at hopefully setting up a local community fund. So all of the fundraising that then takes place for that community walk and a few other projects that we're going to be working on in the background as well, that fund can then be split amongst local community projects to really help enhance what they're able to do, the reach that they're able to have, and really make an impact on some of those areas that we have locally. Lower Green that I mentioned right back at the start are a great example of that, because they don't just offer that place for somebody to go. They also offer financial advice. They operate as a food bank, and if we're able to help provide some money to help fund some of their projects, then that goes a really, really long way to making a difference locally. And the fact that we have our anniversary this year, it feels like an opportunity, and should be something that we're doing to really help bring everybody locally in and involved with the racecourse. So whether that's going to be they benefit from the community fund that we get set up, or actually somebody wants to come and do a lap of the racecourse as part of the walk, or want to get involved in some of the other events that we've kind of got working in the background. It's just a real opportunity to bring everybody together. And as been mentioned by pretty much everybody on this call, racecourses form such an integral part of their local communities. Whether you be a rural racecourse, whether you be a racecourse in an urban area like we are here, people still look towards the racecourse as that kind of cornerstone of the community here where we are in Ishi. We are the biggest business and brand that operate kind of up the high street that we have that's attached to the racecourse here. And as such, people very much look to us to be the leaders in some of these activations as well. And I think it's important that we step into that role and we fulfill it to make sure that we're making a difference. We're engaging as many people as possible. We help that social licensing point that's come up on the call several times as well to make our racecourses as accessible as possible. So the fact that we can kind of attach it onto a convenient anniversary makes it even better, because it just helps us really have something to hook everything onto and get the momentum that helps out the community as best as it can.
Absolutely. I think a really important point is not only the work itself, but also the legacy and how it can continue to help people in the future. And I think we've got examples here that will all do that and continue to thrive in sort of 2025 and beyond. So that brings us to the end of the 45 minutes that we've got to discuss this today. I'm sure we could carry on talking about it for a lot longer, but that's all the time we've got for today. So really just a thank you to all of our panelists for their time today, for everybody listening, for joining, and to Racing Together to putting this on. If this has whet your appetite for community work, you can come along to the Racing Together Industry Day, which is at Nottingham Racecourse on Thursday, the 6th of February. You can see the agenda and the different speakers that will be talking there. And that includes Charlotte Russell from Go Racing Yorkshire for their Bowel Cancer Screening Programme, which was actually the winning initiative from this year's, or from 2024's, I should say, Racing Together Community Award at the Showcase Awards. So you can hear more about racecourse work there, and I'm sure there'll be lots of I'll be there myself and other racecourse representatives as well, who can talk about the community work that's going on. Don't forget, if you'd like to hear about future episodes of this, you can sign up to the Racing Together newsletter to get more information. And also, if you've got the time, it would be great if you could fill out the survey that pops up when you leave this call, just to give feedback on today's session and any ideas you might have for the future. But otherwise, I will say thank you very much one last time to all our panelists, to you for listening, and to Racing Together for putting this on.